the bases dropped on another edition of Soccer Down Here. It's May 11th. It's a Friday, it's a Monday.
Welcome to the new week.
Well, you were just looking around on the camera that I'm looking at, like, are you with us? Is something going on? What's going on? Threw me off. Wanted to test you. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like Monday, Friday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Saturday. It doesn't matter.
It's a whatever Monday.
It's all the same. It's not even a Monday. I mean, why is it a Monday? Who says it's a Monday? Doesn't feel like a Monday. Doesn't feel like any day. It just feels like a day. That's where we're at these days. This is what life is right now, and it's a big day in England. It's a big day in Scotland as they are facing some big decisions to be made. It's a big day in Germany as they are in a match week as the Bundesliga and Second Division Bundesliga will be getting back on the field this weekend. You're starting to see more teams train on the MLS side. You have teams returning to training all around the world. Not all of it is comfortable at this point. There's a lot of different things going on, and we'll try to touch on as much of it as you can. You guys out there listening live on Twitch or on our Soccer Down Here app, you can send us some questions via Twitter. At Soccer Down Here. If you're on Twitch, you can just send it into the comments section, and we'll take care of you there. But all kinds of stuff this morning. And, John, I think you have something to start us off with?
Yeah, all right. So you have broken out your Ruckus jersey for those keeping an eye on us on a video sense today. And I, along those same lines, broke out my Atlanta Apollos gear today. Just because. But as you well know, those who watch us on a regular basis, when the weather is fairly cold in the mornings, I like to break out my NFL Europe warm-up jacket here from the Cologne Centurions. It's about 25 years old. And it finally got to the point to where the wash took care of the zipper, and I mean it sheared it right off of the jacket. It's not like one of those things where you can find the zipper anymore and sit there and reattach it. It has sheared, it is gone, it is missing in action from the washer and the dryer. So my question of the day is, as I definitely kept it on, as you can see I'm wearing it for those on the video side, and I'm planning on being that guy that's going to work the zipper as best I can for as long as I can. What piece of clothing from a team or the most comfortable thing you had did you hang on to far too long and still use after its usefulness?
Well, those are two completely and utterly different things. I mean, holding on to something from a team that you might not wear is very different. I mean, people hold on to their first jersey from their favorite team. Like, I mean, I've got a T-shirt that I couldn't probably wash anymore from the Ruckus days because it's all beat up, and it's a T-shirt from 1995. It's seen better days, but I hold on to it. I'm not wearing it, but I hold on to it. Just holding on to something that's comfortable that doesn't have that kind of meaning, well, then you've got to still be able to wear it. It's a different conversation. Like, I've got a long sleeve, kind of a sweatshirt, but looks a little bit more like a sweater, and I got it, almost 20 years ago, probably.
Yeah,
and got it at like Kmart. I mean, it has no redeeming value other than it's just comfortable, and I've had it forever, and I wear it when it's a little chilly. That's about it. So, those are two completely different things.
But yes,
what is your attachment to that jacket? That's what I don't understand.
It's NFL Europe, and the
you're the only one attached to NFL Europe.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'm like the St. Jude of teams and leagues and causes and things like that. If there's a team or a league that's dead, I probably have more stuff than any other person on the planet when it comes to that particular.
Why? I'm asking why.
I just like the obscure. I mean, here, I'm sitting at my desk in Office HD, and I have right there a Lansing Ignite hat that is on my desk.
No, I understand that you do this. I understand that you have these things. I'm asking why.
Why not?
Lansing Ignite? Well, I can give you a lot of reasons why not. Lansing Ignite was a horribly run soccer team that does not deserve to be celebrated.
But they are the dearly departed, and that's why I have it. It's a piece of memorabilia from the past.
But the only redeeming thing about Lansing Ignite is that they had supporters who loved them and were taken advantage of by a horribly run team.
No doubt.
So I don't want to celebrate that. Like, it's different. Atlanta Apollos is a little bit different. They were also a horribly run team. But you're in Atlanta, so that I get that. But the Centurions of who?
Cologne, Germany, which will be a part of our Germany discussion, by the way.
Yeah, but okay. I don't know. I was just wondering if there was a why, and it doesn't sound like there is one.
No, just the fact that it was a league that was with us, and it's no longer with us. And so now that they're no longer with us, it's just something for me to sit there and have as a part of what used to be.
Okay. Okay.
Hey.
It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, I have AAF stuff. I've got XFL 2020 stuff.
Okay. Hold on. AA, why would you ever want any of that?
Because once again, it was a league that existed that no longer exists.
Okay. And horribly run, check. Took advantage of their fans and players and staff, check.
Yeah.
Nothing to celebrate, no redeeming qualities except for a kicker who made it to the Falcons and probably a few other players. And that's about it.
No, it's not to support the leagues themselves. It's the
leagues
a way.
Are gone. I know you're not supporting them; they're dead.
Yeah, I mean, think about say the San Antonio Commanders, who had a fantastic fan base, showed up to support the team. It's more to be a part of the experience with them than it is about Charlie Ebersol and how poorly run the league was.
But I get it. This is where I'm confused. Like I get it. Okay, I'm wearing an Atlanta Ruckus shirt. I went to Atlanta Ruckus games. I ended up working for the Atlanta Ruckus.
Check.
I sacrificed time when I was in college to keep the Ruckus alive. I have an emotional connection for the Ruckus.
Yeah.
You have no emotional connection to the San Antonio
Commanders
that played 8 games.
Yep.
You don't live in San Antonio.
Nope. I mean, I've got an Orlando Apollos hat up on the ring of honor.
Love Steve Spurrier, but maybe you do. I don't know.
You mean the AAF champs, Orlando Apollos? So I'm waiting for him. He's got the ring too.
Yeah, well, he made it himself because there's no other money to pay for it.
That's correct.
So you're not even like picking a team in a dead league to support that doesn't exist. That there's nothing to support. You're double dipping and triple dipping in leagues.
Of course. Yeah.
All right. Have that.
Hey, I will wear my Atlanta Legends T-shirt tomorrow too.
No, don't do that. Don't ever do that. It's purple. Atlanta and purple don't go together. There's a reason.
No, they don't. No, they do not. No. But so I broke out the Cologne Centurions Atlanta Apollos mix today.
See, and that doesn't even make any sense. Like I couldn't do that. I can't mix things like that.
You can't cross the streams?
No. Like that's very upsetting. Like I can't mix brands. I can't mix Nike and Adidas stuff the same day. Shoes are different, but like I'm not going to wear Nike pants and an Adidas top. Not going to do it. And I'm definitely not going to wear like 2 different teams stuff, even if they are in different sports.
I was going to say it's like one's NFL Europe and one is dearly departed soccer.
But you can't wear 2 of the different teams on the same thing. Like, they have nothing to do with one another. There is this thing called coordination.
I'm coordinated?
Well, you should be. I'm trying to give you advice. If you're going to wear your jacket, then wear a plain shirt. If you're going to wear your Apollo's shirt, then don't wear a Centurion's jacket. It doesn't go together. When
we get into the summer months in June and July, I will definitely be wearing this and there won't be a jacket because it's going to be 90,000 degrees at 7:30 in the morning Eastern.
Well, there is this thing called air conditioning. It works. Try it.
Nah.
Okay.
Not so much.
All right, whatever.
But
have at it.
Yeah. So that's how it is with me. This is the default jacket down here in the morning, unless I'm wearing a sweatshirt or something like that, because it's got pockets, and it's easy to sit there and have things in that you can stash and not have them on the desk and have them fall on the floor. So it's more function.
You're completely and utterly missing the point, and I am not surprised by this on a Monday morning.
Yeah,
it's Monday.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, there are jackets.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them that are plain, or just, since the Apollo's T-shirt doesn't have a brand, you can wear a Nike jacket, you can wear an Adidas jacket, you can wear whatever jacket you want, Under Armour, Asics, you could wear whatever. But
New Balance,
they have pockets.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
But this is comfortable over 20 years of being owned.
All right. You're again missing the point. It's not about that being comfortable after having it for 20 years.
So I'm not allowed to have anything comfortable on my person on the air?
No, you're again missing the point. There's a thing called coordination. You're wearing two different teams that both don't exist.
Correct.
And they have nothing to do with one another.
Correct.
You are crossing the streams. And
Correct.
You're trying to justify it and failing miserably. You're like a Scottish football executive right now.
Which we'll get into later on in the show.
Yeah, it's bad times.
It's the story that keeps on giving.
Yep.
So we've got that. We've got Project Restart. We've got Germany. We've got European Super League. We've got folks that are still not wanting to vote for neutral venues. We have players testing positive. We have prime ministers giving speeches. And Chris Hutchison came in this morning on Twitter and legitimately, just after you gave the morning tease on Twitter, Chris Hutchison, 3 words: Scotland down here.
Yeah, that's what it's turning into these days. It's not good. Not good at all.
No. So that's the show this morning in bits and pieces. So more than bits and pieces, but no, it's a comfortable jacket, and both teams no longer exist.
Back to the jacket. Good grief. Let it go. It's done.
Who brought it up about crossing the streams?
You brought up the jacket.
Yeah, but you brought up crossing the streams.
Because they don't go together. They don't. They don't at all. I mean, the colors at least somewhat do. I'll give you that much at least.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Oh, wow.
You didn't even know that.
Unintentionally, yeah.
You got lucky on the colors, and
I did.
They actually do work together. Oh, my goodness.
Far out.
Holy cow.
Morning, Harry.
Harry's had a few Budweisers this morning. He's good.
Well,
oh, man.
It's probably not a bad idea at this point.
Yeah, I might have to go dip into it. Instead, I will have my watermelon Red Bull to start the day.
Oh, is that the new one?
Yeah.
The newer one?
Yeah. Been talking about this for a while. It's number 1 on the power rankings.
Well, but you've also done your Coca-Cola Energy.
Well, no, those are great too. But the thing is, not everybody in Atlanta, which is kind of heresy, stocks the Coca-Cola Energy. Or maybe they're selling more of it than they can keep in stock. I don't know. But there's some stores that just don't have much of it. And there's also, which I'm learning, some stores that are getting very aggressive with selling the Red Bull, I think because possibly of the Coca-Cola Energy pricing.
How aggressive are they?
I mean, they've brought the prices down. Walgreens, for example, is on a 3 for $7 kick, which normally 2 for $5 is about the best you're going to find. So
you're saving 17 cents per by going to Walgreens.
Yeah, you're getting a little bit more, and the Coca-Cola Energy pricing is not consistent. Like, some places have it. Some places actually have it less than $2 a piece. Most have it at 2 for $4, but some have it priced at 2 for $5, the same as Red Bull. So it's but the watermelon Red Bull is just really good. So
okay. All right. I have never gotten into the Red Bull at all, so you are one up on me where that's concerned.
It is excelente.
Excelente.
The watermelon.
Katie Weaver's in with us this morning on a Monday, on a whatever Monday.
Yeah, it's definitely a whatever day.
And so she says, wait, so I can't listen for a week and the show's on Twitch? Yes. One, she's with me. She agrees with me, write down the day and the time, that it's okay to wear random or legacy team gear even if no true connection to the team.
Let me touch on this, because I'm not saying it's not okay to wear it. I'm saying it might be a slight obsession for my co-host.
Slightly.
It's okay to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my issue. But you have, let me think here. You have the most recently departed XFL. You have stuff from them.
Uh-huh.
The original XFL. You have stuff from them.
Leather jackets included, yes.
The AAF. You have stuff from them.
Check.
The NFL Europe. You have stuff from them.
Both versions. The first version.
Yeah, there. Go ahead. Do you have anything from the World League?
Scottish Claymore's jacket.
No. The 70s, the World Football League.
Yeah, I've got the Legacy T-shirts. I have a bunch of those. Yeah,
so you got those. USFL. I know you have that.
Yep.
Okay, so, and of course NFL and AFL. So you've got everything from every professional football arena league. You got any arena league?
Of course I do.
All right, so you got everything from every professional football league that I've ever heard of.
Got AF2 stuff too.
That's arena league. It's all the same. We're not getting into second divisions of arena league. Okay, so you've got, of course, MLS. You've got new NASL. You've got old NASL.
Yep.
You've got MISL.
Yep.
You've got any of the other indoor leagues?
I don't have any Aces stuff. I might have collectible stuff buried somewhere, but not necessarily stuff that I've worn.
All right, so you're missing out there. Baseball, I mean, there's really not too much. In the National League, American League, you don't have anything from the Senior League that played in Florida in like the 90s, do you? Or the
I have
80s?
I have the baseball cards from the SPBL, but I don't have any gear. Of course I do.
All right, you got probably some NBA, some ABA. You got any CBA stuff?
Yes.
Good God.
I'll wear my
National
Sarasota
Hockey.
Stingers T-shirt on the show soon.
All right, National Hockey League, duh.
The WHA, yes.
Yeah, the WHA. I'm sure minor leagues, you got stuff.
Of course, all over the place.
Canadian Football League? I
Of
didn't ask
course.
about them. Yeah, that's an easy one.
And I also, the Canadian Football League teams that were in America, I have those.
Yeah, I knew it. Yeah. That Katie, that's why I'm saying that maybe it's okay for us normal folk to see a dead team and be like, oh, I kind of like them, or I'm a soccer fan, so I'm going to wear a old soccer team thing that doesn't exist anymore. But this is maybe kind of an intervention. Maybe it's not.
Bite your tongue. Well, here's Katie's second point. However, she's with you that you can't mix brands, leagues, and teams. # fashion down here.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do it. Can't do it. I would always get mad when I'd see like people in high school wearing an Ohio State shirt and like an Auburn hat or something. It's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do it with mixing up like, teams and leagues. Like if you're going to wear something from a team, that's the only thing you can wear that day.
And Nathan Pugh is in this morning, although his first comment was not up the Reds, that is all. And he wonders if I realize old jersey shirts and baseball cards don't count as a retirement fund.
That's a good point. Yeah. I don't think you're going to have a clamoring for the Atlanta Legends T-shirt in a few years. I think it's probably going to be worth whatever you paid when it was on closeout.
It was actually a Festivus gift.
Ah. Well,
so
okay. Then maybe it will be worth more than you paid for it, which was $0.
Yeah, basically.
I don't think it offsets the rest of it, though.
Hey, I mean, like I said, I'm the league leader. I'm the St. Jude for dead sports, and
but you're not helping them come back. St. Jude actually brings people back.
I know.
Come on, that doesn't work.
Hey, look, I've even got, and I just noticed this. Nice, yeah. I noticed this as I was just looking up here on the train track in the office.
What leagues did we leave out?
Actually, movie props.
Oh, that's a whole nother category. Okay.
Yeah. One of the best movies ever, The Replacements.
Yeah, so you have fake teams that are dead from movies.
Yeah, I have a Dallas Ropers, the team that the Washington Sentinels beat to get into the playoffs, the Dallas Ropers. I have a hat right there at the point of the train track, here right above my head in Office HD. I have Washington Sentinels T-shirts and sweat jackets. And the only thing I don't have is like the Shane Falco jersey, which I know that people make them over in Taiwan, and you can get them for like $40 and stuff. But no, I have the movie prop T-shirts for the San Diego franchise and the Washington Sentinels. Shane Falco, most underrated quarterback ever.
He doesn't exist. He's rated properly.
TJ Rubley actually was the QB stand-in for Keanu Reeves in that movie.
That's not true. Keanu Reeves could have played quarterback professionally. We all know this.
Actually, I think it was one of the teams in the NFL actually wanted to give him a tryout after the movie was over.
Did they miss the fact that there was a stand-in?
Probably.
Should that GM have been fired on the spot?
I think so.
Yeah,
and what you should have done was give TJ Rubley another chance.
Seriously. Okay, so since we've completely went off the rails, I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
Most convincing actress playing an athlete.
Charlie Sheen, Major League.
That's the one that comes to mind for me too. Kevin Costner wasn't bad in Bull Durham either, and he was supposed to have been pretty decent.
For love of the game, Kevin Costner.
Well, I mean, all of it. I mean, he was supposed to be like competent in his baseball work.
Yeah, through in the 80s, I think.
Well, that might be a good competition in between Costner and Sheen.
But Sheen admitted at the time, after the movie was out, he admitted years later that he actually did juice up to get his fastball into the low 90s, I think.
Are you surprised that Charlie Sheen took an opportunity to dabble in some things?
No. Dabbling in the horse pills? No, not a surprise.
No, tiger blood and all of it. Not surprised at all.
Oh, did you see that Vijay Singh got yelled at for wanting to be in a lower tour event?
What?
Yeah. Vijay Singh wanted to be in one of the development tour events that is ongoing before the PGA Tour comes online.
Yep.
And so all of the guys who are the lifers who are trying to get their PGA Tour cards, they were yelling at Vijay Singh. It's like, dude, you don't need to be here. We're trying to get into the PGA Tour, and you want to take one of our spots.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you mentioned Tiger Blood, and that was why that came to be when I started thinking of Vijay Singh.
Do you remember the whole Tiger Blood thing with Charlie Sheen?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay,
and I think it was
talking about Tiger Woods.
No, VJ, I want to say as an aid for him in regenerative and recuperative powers. I think it was another animal. It wasn't a tiger, but I think it was something in that vein that, pardon the pun, that helped him recuperate faster after his rounds in the PGA Tour, and it caused a positive drug test result. And he said that it was because of this animal's blood that was like deer or venison or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's completely common.
Oh, well, but no, Nathan has a good point about, okay, Nathan, here's my issue. Nathan says, Michael Jordan in Space Jam.
Well, yeah,
but that's
he
reversing
is the athlete, right?
But that's reversing it though.
Yeah, he is the athlete. Nick Alifi has a good one on Robert De Niro in Raging Bull.
Okay.
Jake LaMotta said that De Niro could have gone pro, and he actually fought in New York City.
Oh, wow.
Better than Sylvester Stallone. Better than Carl Weathers. Better than Dolph Lundgren, yeah. Better than Mr. T and Hulk Hogan
God.
in boxing.
Oh.
Yeah. LaMotta is correct. De Niro was the best actor / boxer.
Yeah. So, wow, that's a good question. It's like what other athletes really passed the test? I mean, because you're getting into. I mean, you say Burt Reynolds in Longest Yard, the original, because of his time playing at Florida State.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Football, baseball, basketball. Well, but then
Nick's pushing back, saying that maybe Dolph Lundgren was better than De Niro as a fake boxer, but kind of boxer.
Well, because wasn't Dolph like a 38th degree black belt or something?
He was some form of a martial artist, and I did not know he was a bouncer for Grace Jones. That does get some respect. I wonder what kind of bouncing you had to do for Grace Jones in those days.
Oh, where's your rim shot for that one? Because I thought, didn't they date for a while?
I wasn't talking about that.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
I wasn't talking about that at all. Good grief, John. Jeez.
Hey. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shows you where my brain is.
Seriously.
On a whatever morning this is.
Yeah. There's this sport that's in the name of the show that we could probably talk about at any point.
Sure. You want to get into Project Restart?
Yeah. Do we have anything out of the discussions in England about getting back on the field? There have been quite a few preliminary things that came out. They were supposed to be meeting and discussing today, Project Restart, when the Premier League would be back. I believe tomorrow the government is supposed to make a statement about the lockdown measures and how much will remain, if any, and what happens next.
Yeah. Premier League is looking to the Telegraph. The government may even give the green light today, after the Boris Johnson speech that happened over the weekend that could allow professional sports to come back next month as lockdown restrictions are eased. And this is according to both the Telegraph and the Daily Mail. Last night, the Prime Minister addressed the next steps, and he is expected to give the Premier League permission to go ahead and restart the campaign, providing safety conditions are met and the rate of infection throughout the country doesn't begin to rise again. So that's where we are with Restart. We're still waiting on official word on Project Restart, but Boris Johnson looks like he would be giving a green light under certain conditions.
Yeah, it's not a shock. I mean, it's the same that Germany went through, the same that looks like Spain's going to go through, and I believe Italy as well, where the government does want to bring sports back, and in this case, the most high-profile sport in soccer, football, calcio, you yell at me however you want. It's a big thing for these governments to bring that back for a lot of reasons. I mean, the economic issues are part of it, but also just the lift to the community, and all of that is going to be part of this discussion all the way through. And, you know, the safety part has to be there or you can't do it, period. And that is one issue that we're seeing. Germany's got a few issues with it. Spain had a few positive tests. But it's how you're going to handle that, from going from the idea of one positive test, shut everything down across the board, to okay, what does a positive test mean, and what do you do now with it?
And everyone is looking to figure out what those next steps are. Brighton came out over the weekend and announced that they had a third player test positive. That individual, unnamed, is now in quarantine. So Brighton is one of those 6 teams that has mentioned that they're not a fan of the neutral site resurrection of the schedule. And, you know, Brighton is looking at it, and now Brighton's having to deal with different things from 2 separate tracks when it comes to the resurrection of the Premier League schedule. And those 6 that we've been talking about, the 6 at the bottom of the table, they are putting their heels in when it comes to wanting to play at home sites as opposed to neutral sites. And so that's another aspect in all of this that we're going to have to keep an eye on this week.
But are they wanting to play at home sites in good faith? And this is the issue I have. And, you know, there was an article in the Mirror, Sam Queck wrote, and he is a Liverpool fan, and that needed to be brought out for full disclosure, because he says that you're going to need to void the season. and not have promotion, which is going to hurt, Leeds, going to hurt teams in the championship, but not have relegation and just void it. And, his argument goes kind of round and round. He first says, first and foremost, restarting the league must be safe, so I share concerns that fans would congregate around their club stadium even if games were behind closed doors. The proposal to play at empty neutral grounds seems the only safe option. It's very, very sad that this is going to be part of the discussion. People need to understand the responsibility that they have as supporters of their clubs. The clubs need to understand the responsibility that they have for their supporters' safety. There's got to be a way other than just, Germany hasn't brought it up like this. Germany said that, it is part of the responsibility of coming back to handle this. England, it's like there's no discussion. It's like there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we could do. It would just happen. Like there's nothing we can't even try. There's nothing we could even say. Like there's no reason to even fight it. That's craziness. I have to disagree. That's just completely ridiculous. So in Queck's article, he goes from that saying, well, the only safe option is to play at neutral grounds. He says it's unfair to a team like Brighton that is trying to stay up, that their home games against top teams, they're not going to get them at home. They would need any home field advantage they could get. That's unfair. So he says, basically, if you can't play at home sites because of people congregating outside the stadium, which is flimsy. I think it's flimsy to just throw that up and say, well, there's nothing we can do. If he says that neutral sites are unfair because it's not fair for teams to lose a home field advantage, and you're not going to be able to wait until it's safe to play at home because, it does move on in other countries. Germany's going to be finished if they stay on track. They're going to be finished in, beginning of July after the Cups. So he says if you can't do all that, you have to void the season. That's not necessarily true. You could complete the season as it is, not void it. You could make determinations based on points per game. You could do different elements of that. You're going to run into some tricky ones in terms of promotion relegation. You could also not relegate anybody. And there are lots of solutions. This is my frustration with this. Is people are grabbing a flag, whatever flag it is, if it's the flag that you can't play games behind closed doors in your own stadium because fans will congregate, or it's not fair for teams to play without fans, or it's not fair for teams to play behind closed doors in a neutral site, or it's not fair to, not promote teams, or it's not fair to not relegate teams. Whatever flag you got, people are grabbing that and not looking at anything else. And we have to stop doing that right now because there's no easy way here. This is complicated. This is tricky. This is going to be difficult, whichever of those flags ends up winning the contest. And I don't think it's going to be one. I think it's going to be a combination of different stances that people are taking. But whichever way you go, it's not going to be perfect. Perfect would have been playing the season out as it was scheduled with no break. Didn't happen, ain't happening. Even if you resumed it now with fans in the stands, people would have a complaint and say, well, we lost our momentum or, whatever. Like, there's going to be something. You're not going to be able to make it perfect. So stop being closed-minded about how you figured this out. Because you're going to have to figure it out one way or another. You're going to have to make a decision. The longer you waffle on this, and that's from the league perspective, or the longer you let people get dug into their stances and not listen to anybody, the worse it's going to get. And this is going to get messy in the next day, too, in England in a big way because decisions are seemingly about to be made about coming back to training.
League One and League Two, I think their resolution is looked at as Thursday, so we'll keep an eye on that as the week goes along.
They're probably going to stop. and they're probably going to end it where it is. And that's a different conversation. I get it. It would cost them money to play games behind closed doors that they don't have. It's better to end it as is. You're still going to have complaints. You're still going to have trickiness when it comes to promotion and relegation with that. But you can't ask those teams to lose money right now to play games behind closed doors. There's no TV component. If a TV partner wanted to come up and say, well, hey, we'll pay you to finish this season out if we can broadcast the games, different conversation. And I don't know if they've even tried to explore that. But otherwise, it doesn't make any sense for them.
So we'll keep an eye on that for Thursday. Mentioning TV really quickly, Match of the Day is planning to resume June 12, according to the Daily Mail. The BBC has been told to get ready for 2 months of uninterrupted games, and this comes from both the Telegraph and the Daily Mail. There's 92 matches left in the season, and the article in the Daily Mail says matches need to be played before UEFA's deadline of August the 2nd for the completion of domestic leagues.
Hold on. I don't think UEFA's set a deadline of August 2nd.
Okay.
Well, nobody else has said anything about a deadline of August 2nd.
Yeah, George Bird, Daily Mail, says...
no, I'm not talking about George Bird of Daily Mail. I'm talking about nobody has said... We've been doing this a lot. Yeah. Nobody has said UEFA set a deadline. The only UEFA deadline that is coming up is later this month about letting them know what you're going to do with your season. There's no August 2nd deadline. August 2nd hasn't come up at all. July 31st has come up because of TV contracts in England. That's a contractual thing. That's not a deadline from a governing body. So this is a big part of all of this. It's a big part of just any kind of conversation these days, but it's a big part of this because things are changing regularly. Mm-hmm. People have to get the details right. There's no deadline coming up from UEFA about finishing the season by a certain point because they talked about things running later. So go ahead. I mean, Match of the Day saying they're going to come back, that's great. They got to have a match to cover. So yippee. You got to have a schedule first, and there's not one. Unless they have some information that is not public yet about when the Premier League is going to resume.
7-week solution also allows for the FA Cup final to be played on August 8th, which would be shown on BBC.
But wouldn't that be after the UEFA deadline?
Uh-huh.
See, just get the information right, people, please. You're confusing the hell out of people. And it's just an important element of all of this. It doesn't take long to fact check this stuff. Just try to be consistent with what's going out there, please.
And you also mentioned players. Sami Mokbel has, in an article, Premier League players believe clubs are engaging in, quote, unethical practices to influence them ahead of next week's Project Restart. Club officials have held clandestine discussions with individual members of their squads in recent weeks, leaving players wary of their employers' motives at the start of a decisive week for plans to resume the season. Sportsmail reveals players have been left with the impression they could benefit from new contracts if they act in the club's interests now.
Okay, hold on a second. Clubs have had clandestine discussions with individual members of their squads.
According to Sami Mokbel of the Daily Mail.
No, I'm not talking about him. I'm not saying he's incorrect. I'm saying they're clandestine. Clubs are talking to players. Don't they employ them?
Yes.
Shouldn't they be meeting with them?
Keeping them up to date on what's going on in the world, yes.
And haven't we seen and heard during this of senior members of squads meeting with club management to talk about next steps?
Mm-hmm.
Haven't we heard of that happening like everywhere, ever? That's kind of part of the game. You don't always meet with the full group. If you're the manager, if you're the technical director, you meet with the captain, you meet with whatever senior leadership team you have, and you go from there. I don't think those discussions are clandestine. That's a loaded word, and it's used for effect here. I have an issue with that. The influencing them ahead of the vote. This is where things are going to get tricky, because now you're getting into this conversation about. I guess it's been alluded to that Premier League clubs would not pay their players if they don't finish the season, so they would not pay them what's owed on their contract.
Right.
That could get into some murky legal ground, because what terms do you have in the contract? If you are being paid to play games and you don't get to play the games that you are being paid for, not injury issue, but just the games don't happen, is the club due to pay? Don't know. I don't know. I don't know these things. I don't know the answer to this. I'm literally asking because I don't know what the terms are, and I would assume that different contracts have different terms too, and that could be even more tricky. There's also the other element that we've talked about. Look, teams are going to run out of money. Not all, but some. You're looking at zero income starting on August 1st. Zip, zilch, nada, because the next season is not going to start on August 1st. No matter how this goes, if you do finish the season out, next season's not starting August 1st. If you don't finish this season out, I don't know if the next season is going to be ready to start on time to start having that income come in. Also from that article, a number of clubs have privately conceded redundancies are inevitable if the season does not start by July 31st. What is the proper definition of redundancies from a British perspective? Is that essentially layoffs?
Yes.
Okay, that was my understanding. Not furloughs, layoffs, because there's no money.
Right.
So, I mean, the issue with not being able to pay contracts is going to come up in one form or another. It just is. That's one reason why they are trying to get these games played. It's just part of it. There's no avoiding it. Can a Manchester City, Manchester United pay out their contracts no problems? Yeah. Yep. Can Bournemouth? Can Newcastle? Well, Newcastle, we don't know yet. Can Norwich? Can Brighton? I don't know. I don't know if they can or not. And the idea that Sports Mail puts out about players have been left with the impression they could benefit from new contracts if they act in club's interest now. We've talked about that the whole way. I mean, we've looked at it from the other side, that if you push back, against, taking a deferred payment or a pay cut to help the club, that it's going to affect how the club interacts with you down the road. The flip side is also true. If you work with the clubs now, they're probably going to be more likely to sign you to a new contract. I'm not surprised by this, and I don't know if it is the awful thing that it's being portrayed as. The clubs do have a business to run. If players are able to work with them, and again, number one element, I feel like we have to say this every time anything comes up because it gets twisted. If it's not safe, you can't come back, period. And part of the safety is testing. Part of it is protocol. What happens if you do have a positive test? How do you handle these things? All of those elements are part of this. All of it. If you cannot have the players be safe, and if they do test positive, then if you cannot take care of them properly, no, you can't come back. But if you can do those things and the league is allowed to come back, then that's a different discussion. And the reason why these clubs want this to happen is they don't want to lay people off. They don't want to go dark. They don't want to go out of business. They don't want to have to sell off players under contract. I mean, that's the flip side is You know, it's being made to look bad that clubs would benefit players with new contracts if they come back and they work with the club here. Well, the flip side is going to happen. Clubs are going to sell players who have value because they have to balance the books. That's going to happen too. And there's no avoiding it. Can
we have the developing story breaking news sounder, please?
That was a very confusing one. Go ahead.
According to ESPN and the Daily Mirror, the Premier League can resume next month as the government gives the go-ahead for the season restart. From the Mirror, the Premier League could resume behind closed doors as early as June 1st after the government gave the green light to restart the season. 60-page roadmap unveiled by the government Monday afternoon, which various protocols were outlined, including the return of professional sport. As a part of his plan to bring the UK out of lockdown, quoting the Mirror, PM Boris Johnson has stated sport will be permitted to be broadcast from behind closed doors from the start of next month at the earliest.
Yeah, the government's published a 50-page guidance document detailing how England will begin to ease lockdown measures. And step 1 would be now. Step 2 would be where events can happen behind closed doors, and that can't happen before June 1st. So if you're able to start training now, if you are Premier League clubs, you're not playing probably second week of June?
Yeah. Second week of June, I'd probably say. If you get back to training, say now, you give yourself a month, you're looking, say, June 12th, which is what we were talking about just earlier.
Yeah, it'll be the Friday. Yeah, I mean, that's probably even maybe pushing it a little bit, but that's somewhat doable. Okay.
So that is where we are, and now it is taking it once again a day at a time and figuring out if everything is adhered to and you don't get any other large numbers of the reemergence of the virus. Once again, stage 1, stage 2, and we're set for June 12th as of right now.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you can come back. You're not going to start on June 1st.
No.
Let's be abundantly clear on that. You haven't been training, so
no.
You're going to be allowed to have events behind closed doors that early.
Right. So that's where we are with the Premier League.
I'm sure we'll have more to talk about here with the Premier League because they are meeting, I think, right now. I have not seen any resolutions to their meeting, so I'm assuming that they are still meeting at the moment.
Yeah.
I did have another article from Sky Sports, and it was just all of the stuff coming into the meeting, so it was basically laying the groundwork for it. Kaveh Solhekal, he wrote that the proposals are being discussed today about how to restart training. They contain that guidance about testing, monitoring players and staff for the coronavirus, keeping the working environment as safe as possible, protecting players, club employees at all times. Every club would need to produce a COVID-19 operational policy. Training sessions would not be allowed to last longer than 75 minutes. It's kind of a weird one. A senior executive at one Premier League club says that their players will not be forced to train or play if they feel it is unsafe. Their players' safety and the safety of all their employees is their number one priority. And additionally, this is where a Premier League club owner told Sky Sports News their players will not be paid if they do not play. Those are two different club representatives. Keep that in mind. Players, according to the PFA, the Professional Football Association, Bobby Barnes is their deputy chief exec. He has said that players have, quote, genuine concerns about their health, which absolutely. I mean, those protocols do need buy-in from the PFA. I I hope everybody can actually discuss this stuff in good faith. And I'm starting to have concerns that can actually happen. The date of May 18th has been penciled in as the date to resume training. That's if everything is signed off on. The government part of it that has been signed off on was a big part of this. So that hurdle is over now. But are you going to get enough between the teams to get back on the training pitch on May 18th? Good timing, John. That might be Bobby Barnes calling you right now.
It's somebody from Tampa, Florida? I have no earthly idea. Well, but that's the thing. It's down here is the only place where the phone rings because of routers and such. And so, one more ring? Yeah, I know. Exactly. The Independent says that all 20 Premier League clubs met via video conference today to discuss their next move with a vote on restart plans likely early next week.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We will see what happens in England. I don't know if we're going to get any answers because people are very stuck in their way of thinking on this. And I think that's going to end up doing damage because nobody really knows, and you've got to work together to figure out the best plan forward because you're not going to be able to solve all of the issues that are brought up. And we can play the hypothetical what if game all day. And if that's where it is, then no, you can't play. But if they can put forward the protocols, if they can do the things that are needed to be able to play, then play. And if players aren't comfortable doing it, they should be allowed not to play. These are the issues that are going to come up. And then, I can already see it. Brighton, for example, since they've been very vocal in all this, they are in a tough match at the end of the season, and I would think by that point you wouldn't have players who then feel uncomfortable about playing. I would assume it would be at the beginning, but who knows? Yeah. Something happens, and a key player comes out and says, we're not comfortable playing, and that could hurt their chances of staying up. Then what? That's where we are with this. And there is not a solution to everything. I think that's what people have to understand in the game. There is not this plan that we have all missed that would solve every issue that is around this. There isn't. It doesn't exist. Forget it. The Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, they don't exist either. That magic plan doesn't exist. So you've got to make the best of what you have to work with. And the issues that are going to affect making the best of it are the financial realities, are the need, I think, that in terms of having sports back, no matter what Norman Chad writes in the Washington Post.
Ugh.
Yeah, the hey, look at me, I have a controversial opinion article. Those are always fun. People want sports to come back. I think the governments want sports to come back. Obviously, the people who have a financial investment in sports want it to come back, but people want these things to come back if they are safe. And if you can do that, if they are safe, okay, then make the next step. But then when you start figuring out the competitive situation and competition guidelines, look, it ain't going to be the perfect situation. That's gone. So what is it, and what are you going to do to try to make it as fair as possible? That's where these leagues need to work together. And as we're seeing in England, you're already getting the camps dividing up. As we've seen in Scotland, the camps are at open warfare with one another. And we haven't seen that in Germany. We haven't seen that yet in Spain and Italy, although Italy has had some little things with Brescia's owner, for example, saying they shouldn't come back, but that was dropped fairly quick. England and Scotland are the two that is just, maybe it's because of the lack of leadership at the top. Maybe it's because of the format. Maybe it's because of the history. I don't know. But those are the two where you have these lines being drawn, not in the sand, but in the concrete to separate it. And I don't know if they can get bridged because nobody can come forward with the right compromise. Nobody can get people together to sort these things out. And the longer it goes, the worse it gets, as we're seeing in Scotland.
Then let me ask you this. And I don't see those 6 clubs at the bottom of the Premier League table budging from the neutral site argument. And we got into it last week in discussing the notion of, well, you need to get it squared away on the pitch, and you have these 6 teams who seemingly don't want to play so they don't get relegated because they need the Premier League money as badly as they do. I don't see Aston Villa changing their mind. I don't see Watford changing their mind. I don't see Bournemouth definitely not changing their mind. I don't see Brighton changing their mind.
Why do you not see that?
Because they're so dependent on the Premier League dollars and how much of it, especially in Bournemouth's case, as we've been discussing, how almost between 85 and 90% of the TV revenue is put into player wages in Bournemouth's case. I think they're looking at the end of the tunnel. Instead of getting it sorted out on the field, they're looking at the end of the financial tunnel, see it's an oncoming train, and they want to avoid getting relegated because it could mean the end of their club, specifically in Bournemouth's case. Bournemouth, if they're relegated, will not be the same club ever again.
Okay, but this is why I keep bringing this up, and it's why I ask you, because I wanted that said. All right, Bournemouth doesn't want to finish the season in any format because they don't want to get relegated.
Yep.
However, the Premier League has made it clear they're not going to play with 22 teams.
Yeah.
Or 23 teams. Or anything other than 20 teams. So Bournemouth is essentially trying to block promotion from the championship and void the season. That's their argument at this point, because there's nothing else left on the table. If that's it, if you're trying to not get relegated, that's all you have. Because if you're trying to not get relegated, and the league has been very clear in saying there won't be more than 20, well, then you're not going to have promotion from the championship, and the only other solution is, I guess you could declare champions, but you're not going to have promotion relegation.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I don't, unless
I don't either.
The league changes its stance. So then what are you trying to do? You're taking an unlikely position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because there's nothing to show. Like, this has been my issue with all this. It's not that Bournemouth is lobbying for promotion, but no relegation. I haven't heard that from them. I haven't heard that from Brighton. I haven't heard that from anybody. They're not offering other solutions. It is, no, we don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's not gonna, don't wanna. That's basically their defense.
And that's not enough.
No.
That's not enough, and this is where what will happen in England is what has happened in Scotland, where it is not about what's for the good of the game, what's for the good of the league, what's for the good of the sport in the country, not what's good for the country. It is only what's good for my club. Mm-hmm. And look, what you think is good for your club, you might be wrong here. Brighton could play their way to stay up. Other clubs could play to stay up. That's more likely than getting the Premier League to have 23 teams. That's more likely than waiting it out before being able to play back at your home venue in front of fans. The most likely scenario for these clubs is to play and earn the right to stay in the Premier League. That's the most likely scenario for them.
Yeah.
But by taking this stance, you're almost sabotaging that because you're creating the mentality of we're not good enough to stay up.
Yeah.
And we need to try to fight our way up in the boardroom. And that's going to have an effect on the club. So it's going to have an effect on the players. It's going to have an effect across the board. That's an issue. And there's just not another way around it. Like, there's not some other magic solution because the Premier League has been so dug in about not allowing teams to avoid relegation because they're not going to have 23 teams. And the Championship, because it's not like Germany, it's not like Spain, I think Italy is under the same situation. It's not like Scotland in that the first and second divisions have a connection to one another in the way that they do business. They have a connection between the Premier League and the Championship, but not in the same way as the others do. The Premier League and the Football League are separate entities. The Championship is not going to go along without a fight, not having promotion.
Nope.
So, because of, right now, 6 teams who are trying to avoid getting relegated, 3 of them will get relegated, they're putting this roadblock in the way of any kind of reasonable discussion over what's next. You're going to have to remember who these clubs are and how they're acting during this, because they're not acting in the best interest of the game. They're not. They're not acting in a competitive interest here either. They're acting in a self-preservation interest, which I do understand to a point.
Yes.
And the Premier League, this is where you need leadership. The Premier League has to understand that, and they have to figure out a way to work within that, okay? Brighton doesn't want to go down. They don't know if they can survive in the Championship. They don't know if they can survive the drop. It is a different competition finishing than it was initially at the beginning. There's no way around it. Are you able to reallocate some money to support them if they do get relegated? Are you able to extend parachute payments another year? Are you able to kick more money here or there? Are you able to find a way to do that? Are you able to get creative with other solutions? Are you willing to actually look at the possibility of not having relegation? These are the questions that it feels like, because everybody is only looking at what is directly in front of them. You don't have the FA taking leadership. You don't have the Premier League president taking leadership. You don't have the Football League leadership, jumping in here. You don't have anybody except for people looking out for their own narrow interests. It will ultimately do a lot of damage. Scotland is reeling from this, and it's only getting worse. The Bundesliga is not, because they've had leadership, and they are working together, and they have from day one in this, with big clubs understanding they need to support some of the smaller clubs. That's been a huge element to why you haven't had this kind of stuff in Germany. England is tearing itself apart over this, and it's only going to get worse when you get closer to actually making a decision about what's next.
Aston Villa, with their new owner, Tony Shaw, over the last couple of years, has spent 9 figures to the left of the decimal place to get back to the Premier League. And
over the last couple of years.
Yeah, ever since Shaw took over, he has invested millions, hundreds of millions of pounds to get them back into the Premier League.
Yep.
And it has, right now, on the pitch, proven that they're going to have a problem staying up. Yeah. So, once again, that's a you problem. But Aston Villa is probably going to have issues financially if they don't survive. We know Bournemouth is going to have issues if they don't survive. Brighton's going to have issues if they don't survive. Watford, I think Watford could play themselves away from the drop, because we've seen what they've been able to do in years past. Who are the ones in the rest of Norwich. Norwich specifically did not spend any money in the previous transfer window because head coach Daniel Farkas said that they were paying for their past sins and they couldn't bring in any other players for any kind of financial deal. I think that Norwich could survive, but they're looking to me more and more like one of those pogo teams that might be in the Prem one year, drifting out, back to the Championship, back in, back out, back in. So we've seen what Norwich has been able to do. So I think that you see teams this time around approaching it from a negative. They don't think that they can put enough of a successful product on the pitch to survive the Premier League, so they're going to try and figure out other ways to not go back to where they were.
Yeah, I get it, but
I do too.
It's you can't govern a group like this.
No,
that's the problem. Is you can't govern a league where Aston Villa spent a lot of money. They did. They got back to the Premier League. They did. They are in, right now, depending on how you want to look at it, 17th, 18th place. Points per game, points. They have a game in hand, all kinds of stuff. They've had how many games? 29?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of 9 minus 30. Yeah, 29.
28.
28. Yeah, that's right. The FA Cup with Manchester City.
So League Cup, Carabao Cup,
Gummy
Bear Cup.
Gummy Bear Cup, thank you.
So they've got 10 games left, but they played 28. It's not like they played 3. They played 28, and they haven't been very good. You kind of are who you are. The table tells you who you are. Now, these teams could stay up, absolutely. But are they going to hold the game hostage over this? Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
They will. Unless somebody figures out how to be a leader in all of this, whether it's the head of the Premier League, head of the FA, something. All right. Before we move over to Scotland, because we've got breaking news in Scotland, tell us about Steve Apolinski and Apolinski & Associates.
Nicely done for the setup there. AA-legal.com, Apolinski & Associates, LLC, trial lawyers extraordinaire. Over 30 years of experience, over $40 million in judgments for their clients, wrongful death and serious injury in both Alabama and Georgia. Reach out to them a couple of different ways. Go to aa-legal.com. And when you go to the website, low right-hand corner, instantaneously, the millisecond that you get to aa-legal.com, pop-up window shows up on the low right-hand corner, and you can start a live chat with a representative 24/7, 365 to discuss any concerns or possible cases that you may have. You can also reach out to Steve at Steve, S-T-E-V-E, at aa-legal.com. You can get a free consultation by also giving him a buzz at 404-377-9191. Steve Apolinski & Associates, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend Magazine, top 100 trial attorneys in the state of Georgia. Friend of everything SDH Networks and soccer down here. It is aa-legal.com.
Nicely done. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for supporting the show. Almost from day one.
Yes.
Steve's been with us for a long time. Jason Wright has been with us for a long time as well. And
yes, he has.
The MLS Fantasy League will be back when MLS is back. We don't know when that's going to be. And when it is back, we will be giving you our updates on the Soccer Down Here Fantasy League presented by the Jason Wright Agency. Jason Wright Agency on Facebook, Jason Wright AGEN on Twitter. All of your insurance needs. You got a new car, you got a new home, you got an apartment, you got a business. He can help you get sorted out on the insurance front. Jason Wright Agency on Facebook, Jason Wright AGEN on Twitter. All right.
Yes. Check.
We've got to move a little north from where we have been in this whole discussion because we've got oh man, no, it keeps coming. I don't even know if you've seen all of it that is coming out of Scotland today. It's a lot.
Give me Dunfermline and Inverness Caledonian Thistle, and I'll give you Neil Doncaster.
In Scotland today.
I'm going to give you Aberdeen, actually, is what I'm going to give you.
Hello.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. You don't know these things. I follow these things. Dave Cormack sets the club's position on tomorrow's extraordinary general meeting. We reiterate our belief that an independent inquiry is the only way of drawing a line under what has become a highly damaging episode for the whole of Scottish football. There is a distressing lack of confidence and trust between the SPFL leadership and many of the clubs, and it is hard to see a resolution, far less a reconciliation, without some form of impartial and objective assessment of the many claims and counterclaims. Some of those involved will be prepared to make information known in confidence through an independent inquiry, which they would not otherwise be willing to disclose. The SPFL will be able to provide details of the contractual consequences for the SPFL of different possible outcomes which they have felt unable to share with members, and therefore the opportunity to obtain confirmation that their proposal was the only practicable option available. Importantly, there will be the opportunity for the SPFL's chief executive and legal advisor to be cleared of the serious allegations that have been made. It is difficult to see how these outcomes could be achieved in a different way. Dave Cormack saying that the Aberdeen will vote for the independent inquiry.
Right on. You had Dunfermline also came out this morning, and Inverness Caledonian Thistle came out yesterday with statements before the Aberdeen statement this morning / this afternoon their time.
Yeah, I mean, the gist of them is the Inverness statement yesterday went deeper down the road that we talked about on Friday, that Dunfermline's chairman, who is also on the board, was threatening teams using his position as an SPFL board member. Dunfermline's statement today said that it was obvious that he was speaking on behalf of Dunfermline, not as a league board member. Again, I don't think that's really completely and utterly possible to separate the two. That feels like a stretch. I'm with Dave Cormack in this. However you feel about the resolution, the reconciliation, reconstruction projects, all kinds of R words, however you feel about them, it's broken. It's flat out broken. And they have to do the independent inquiry. There's no way around it. Because if there's nothing there, then, like Cormac says, it's going to allow the league to make everything clear, lay everything on the table, and defend themselves. For clubs that feel like there is something there, they're going to feel completely safe in speaking to an independent, investigator here on this, rather than the league doing it themselves. Because if you feel like the league is not looking out for the best interests of the game, you're not going to tell them everything because you're going to fear, being punished.
Yep.
So this is the best way forward. It's sad that it's come to this. This is where you're at. I think Dave Cormack brings common sense to the discussion, which has been missing throughout the whole thing. It's progressed to the point that whether you feel like the league is in the right or the wrong, you have to go forward with this to find out what actually happened.
Yep. SPFL Chief Exec Neil Doncaster, through both the Scottish Sun and BBC News Scotland, said that he is aware of concern from clubs over language used during league resolution debates. But he also insists there's been no formal complaints made directly to the SPFL over their role in the discussions. Telling BBC Scotland, quote, "No club has reported bullying to me, or as far as I am aware, to Murdoch McLennan either. Clearly, there was robust exchanges between clubs. We were aware, particularly in the championship, that those conversations were ongoing, but nobody reported any bullying to me. A number of people expressed concerns about language used. I believe there was a suggestion that if the resolution didn't go through then, there might be an attempt to change the distribution mechanism in the championship. Perhaps it made an equal share."
That's the Dunfermline issue. That's where it came up that the Dunfermline chairman, who is also on the board, said that then you wouldn't have the share being divided by position in the league, and you would just divide it up equally. So, of course, then the teams that were at the top of the table were not happy because they would be making less. That's where it's kind of hard to separate your position as a club chairman and a league board member when you are bringing that to the table, which now Doncaster has said and alluded to. That's what's happening here. Doncaster with the SPFL has said, we didn't do anything. Nothing. Everything was great. Everything was fine. We didn't do anything wrong with the vote. Everything was above board. Well, then this happened. Well, I understand this. Well, there's no complaint. I mean, now it's saying nobody reported bullying. Tomorrow it'll be, well, yes, we did hear from some clubs that there was bullying. I mean, you basically said nobody reported it, but we know that there were strong statements made or whatever. Nonsense. Get out of the way. Stop. Just stop. You've made this a joke. You have to have an independent inquiry now. At a minimum, you have incompetent leadership who can't handle a vote and can't handle spam filters on email and can't handle PR of announcing the results of a vote. I mean, put all of it to the side. Put the negotiation about it, put threats, put bullying, put all of that to the side for a second. You had a vote that you announced the results before you had all the votes in. Nobody does that. That's not how you vote. That, at a minimum, is enough to have an inquiry because you tainted the vote. By your actions, you tainted the vote. That's it. There's no way to say you didn't. The excuse that, well, the media wanted answers, that's not an excuse for announcing the vote results before they're completed. There's no excuse for that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The rest of it, there's a lot more adding to it. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's enough that is out there that you have to investigate it because I don't think anybody has confidence in the Scottish game going forward under the current SPFL leadership at all. You haven't been able to get anywhere on reconstruction talks at this point, which were reportedly a big part of this whole idea to end the season now. There's been no progress, none. There was reportedly discussions that then kind of went up in flames at the end of last week on the reconstruction side. So nothing there. You've got Doncaster in Q&A with, I believe it was, the Daily Record. Keith Jackson of the Daily Record and Neil Doncaster had a Q&A that was published this morning. Him talking about the way the promotion and relegation works in the pyramid, and he was incorrect. You know, he talked about it with the teams trying to get into the lowest division, and one of those clubs came out and said, no, that's actually not how it happens. This is how it happens. So it's a mess. I mean, Doncaster keeps going back to this phone call with Rangers chairman Douglas Park. So? And? Like, that doesn't mean that you handled a vote correctly. That doesn't mean that you've handled leading this league trying to sort this out correctly. It doesn't mean that board members weren't making threats to teams about, no, you're not going to get your share of the money. We're just going to divide it up equally if you don't vote for this. It doesn't mean these other things didn't happen. Maybe it happened. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. We don't know what was said. Legal advisors have told Doncaster not to give any more details. He threatened Rangers that they wouldn't make this defamatory allegation public, and they haven't. So we don't know what was said, but like that's what he keeps focusing on, and I'm sorry, that's not the biggest issue here. If somebody said something mean to you in a private conversation that you didn't want spread, and now you're going to legally threaten them if they say it publicly, fine. That doesn't wipe the rest of it off the table.
Didn't we hear that he told Aberdeen it was cool, you don't have to send in your vote because we've already got the number?
Something along those lines, yeah. There's been so many twists and turns. I believe it was Aberdeen that he said, like, look, we've already got it. Your vote doesn't matter. And I don't know how Aberdeen ultimately voted. I don't remember. But it didn't matter. It came down to the championship side of it.
Yeah. And also, just speaking in a general sense, if your chief executive says that no one's made a formal complaint about any kind of bullying, but I would hope that if someone is being bullied, that they would let me know. If I don't have any faith in your activities as a chief executive, why would I tell you in the first place? Because I would think that you're not going to do a damn thing about it. Under the current trust levels that teams have with the chief executive of the SPFL, why should I tell you what's going on if I don't think you're going to do a thing about it? It's because it seems counterproductive to me to sit there and tell you something if you're either going to bury it or just let it go.
Yep.
Quoting Doncaster again, he says, if people feel the line has been crossed, they should make a formal complaint. That hasn't happened. I would encourage anyone who feels they've been bullied by anyone to come forward. It will be investigated in the proper way, and the board has always made that entirely clear. I call BS.
I have a question.
Sure.
Nobody's made a formal complaint. Why did Deloitte have an investigation about things? Was that only because of the vote? What about Rangers and their dossier that included bullying, by the way?
Yeah.
That wasn't a formal complaint, even though they sent it to the league, and the league was upset that people made it public? That's not a formal complaint.
Yeah.
We're in this phase where people feel like, if I keep yelling things as loudly as possible and keep saying things that are nonsense, well, then it will become true. And last time I checked, that's not how it works.
No. And there's also another lengthy Q&A with Doncaster, with Robert Grieve of the Scottish Sun, and
it's been very vocal these days.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes your head hurt when you're looking at it. I'm trying to find the greatest hits without completely and totally having my headache of the day. But he goes into the discussion that he had with Douglas Park at Rangers and how words crossed the line, and he was asked if the words that were used were defamation. And you're just like, okay. He says, I'm not going to go into the detail of what the allegation was or the threat.
He's called it defamatory, so yeah. I mean,
yeah. He says it's ongoing in the sense that, to be frank, there hasn't been a public repeating of that allegation.
No, because, one, it was you threatened them legally that they could not repeat it publicly, and it came in a private conversation. Like, that's the thing. Like, this whole zeroing in on that, that doesn't take everything else away. That's what's nuts about it. And this could be a day, if you weren't getting ready for the extraordinary general meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
This could be a big day for Scotland and Scottish football, because this is a day that is the anniversary of Aberdeen winning the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. One of the competitions that was folded into now the Europa League. But back then, the Champions Cup, you didn't have 4 teams from a country getting in. It didn't happen. So if you won your league, you went into the Champions Cup. If you won your cup, you went into the Cup Winners' Cup. You had a different league too, a different competition that was more for the second and third place teams and stuff like that. Well, Aberdeen went into this and they beat Bayern Munich, and then they beat Real Madrid in the final in Gothenburg, Sweden. And it's a huge celebration of it. Aberdeen's had a bunch of cool stuff about it. Derek Ray has tweeted a ton of cool things about it. Growing up in Aberdeen. Lots of great stuff going on around all this. Aberdeen FC on Twitter, they're posting a lot of cool stuff. Neil Simpson posted the medal, the jersey that was worn. Let's see, he got a Real Madrid jersey as well. All kinds of stuff that should be a very important day to look back on for Scottish football, but instead, on this same day, Aberdeen is having to release a statement that they are supporting an independent inquiry into the SPFL.
And if you haven't gone to Derek's account today, Katie Weaver says that Derek shared a great video of fans traveling in a boat to the match. It's pretty funny. And wow, that looked like a fun trip. And Derek's wearing his one of his old Aberdeen jerseys, and I think he has a vacuum cleaner in his hand.
Yeah, he explained it. You might want to explain it there.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I haven't had a chance to see the video. I just saw the still of him holding the vacuum cleaner.
But there's words in the tweet. Are you going to read the words?
No, go ahead and read the words.
No, I don't have it in front of me. You're talking about it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was my eyes were crossing over Neil Doncaster continuing to say really silly things, but now that I've dialed
our
it,
good friend Derek is not just walking around randomly with vacuum cleaners. Now I gotta.
He says, 37 years ago today, my home city club Aberdeen beat Real Madrid in Gothenburg to become only the third Scottish club to lift a European trophy. I was 16 and went back in time for my hoovering session today. Sound up!
See?
Hashtag
Okay.
Gothenburg Day.
There we go.
And so he's talking about it. So
all right,
it's good stuff. So Derek Ray with a vacuum cleaner at Raycom with 2 M's on the Twitters.
The vacuum cleaner's not the important part of this. He's going back in time, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff with Red TV. So Aberdeen celebrating a big day in their history, and tomorrow's going to be a big day in Scottish football history, and it's going to be a mess. It's going to be ugly. It's going to get worse. I mean, we've already to the point that we've got the chief exec for the league threatening legal action about defamatory, derogatory statements that were made in a conversation with a club chairman. We've got clubs accusing other club chairmen who are also on the board of bullying and threatening to withhold money. We've got a voting process that was a joke. We've got a club that has admitted to getting some kind of concessions for changing their vote. I mean, you've got to clean this up.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see what happens in the vote tomorrow about having an independent inquiry. But Aberdeen on the record as supporting it. Quite a few other clubs have gone on the record as supporting it. It looks like it's going to get enough votes to support it.
One other thing from the Doncaster Q&A from the Scottish Sun dealing with Partick Thistle. Partick Thistle described the fact they were informed of league reconstruction talks collapsing through the media as a disgrace. Should that courtesy have been extended to them? Doncaster, quote, bear in mind, that wasn't a meeting of the SPFL on Friday. It was a meeting of the Premiership clubs, and we were not a part of that. I was hearing secondhand what apparently had been discussed on that call, just as everyone else was. It was not within the SPFL's power to make an announcement because we didn't know. It appears info from that meeting has been leaked, but that's not something within the gift of the SPFL.
Well, no, it's not. It wasn't their meeting. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. They didn't hold the meeting, so I mean, you can't really hold them accountable for a meeting that wasn't theirs. It was the top flight clubs that were meeting about reconstruction talks. That's the issue with all of this is you've got different things needed between top flight clubs and a wide variety of things within the top flight because Celtic is on a different planet than the rest when it comes to finances. Everybody else is in a different spot, and then most are in a bad spot. Then you've got the championship, which is a whole nother conversation of what's needed and what's not needed. And then you've got the lower divisions. Like, you've got to get certain thresholds at each level to support anything going forward. So each level is going to have its own talks. The SPFL as a combined entity can't handle every different level's individual talks. So now this is one where Partick Thistle's looking for something to jump on, and I don't think it's there.
And, so go to the Scottish Sun if you'd like to see Neil Doncaster talk. It was the interview with Robert Grieve yesterday about a wide range of issues, and Neil was Neil.
Yeah, he's had a lot of Q&As, and he's still not making a whole lot of sense.
Nope.
We'll see how the vote goes tomorrow. I think it's going to be a mess.
You want to go to Spain?
Sure.
La Liga president Javier Tebas says there will be zero risk for matches to be played every day when competitive football returns to Spain. First and second division clubs have now returned to training. Real Madrid's players are the latest to take part in individual sessions this morning. Quoting Tabas to Movie Star, the risk during games will be zero or practically zero. What I ask now is the utmost focus on adhering to the health measures. If we stick to them, we'll restart the competition with very few or no infections.
I think Tabas is being a little too optimistic here, and that's not the right approach. But, yeah, he spoke to a show, Vamos, on Movie Star last night, and they are still shooting for June 12th as their restart date, but that depends on the progress made. The first and second divisions would start on the same day. Games every day for 35 days to finish the season out.
Yeah.
They are testing virtual and interactive elements for TV presentations and in-stadium presentations to make up for the lack of atmosphere. Out of the first and second division, they had 5 positive tests. That's less than what the Bundesliga had between the first and second divisions. So, look, I don't think it's a surprise when you look at what's going on the testing front. So, we can speak to it from here in Georgia. It's only now, in the last few days, that you've had testing become widely available to anybody who wants it. Before that, it was only people that were showing symptoms, not even asymptomatic. Now, in these leagues, you're having everybody get tested. There's no issue about if they're showing symptoms or not. You're getting everybody tested. Is it a surprise that 5 players in Spain, 10 or 11 in Germany, players and staff? Is it a surprise that you're having positive tests? I don't think so. I don't think it should be. It's now how you deal with it. And in Germany, for example, Dynamo Dresden, and this is where it gets complicated in Germany, and the league has been very upfront about all of this. The local health officials, the local health departments, are the ones who are going to make the determinations, and they have ordered Dynamo Dresden, second division team, into a 14-day quarantine. 2 players tested positive. No symptoms, but the entire team, coaching and support staff, will now be quarantined at home for 14 days. That's what Dynamo Dresden said on their official website. They resumed their practice sessions last Thursday. So now they're not going to be able to play their first, and probably their second as well, but definitely their first league match. They were supposed to be at Hanover on May 17th. The league has come out and said that they, had plans for these sorts of things happening, and they will, readjust the schedule as appropriate, and that's all you can do right now. But that's not the club ordering the quarantine, and this is a very important distinction. It is the local health officials that are ordering that quarantine for 2 positives out of Dresden's staff. It's 2 players, no symptoms, but their entire staff is being quarantined at home for 14 days.
When it comes to the action this weekend, how much of it are you going to watch?
Probably a decent bit. I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. I'm intrigued to see where the level is. I'm definitely interested in it. And the German league's not one that I watch on the regular. It's right not one of my usual go-tos. I honestly, outside of MLS and USL, I probably watch Argentina more than anybody else, or more than anything else. And England would probably be next just because it's so widely available here.
Right.
After that, it just depends. It depends on if there's a match that grabs my attention in Germany or Spain or Italy. Probably ended up watching more of Serie A than anything outside of England and Argentina in the last season. But I'll definitely be watching. Now, ESPN has a great piece. Tom Hamilton and Stefan Ersfeld came out on May 8th, but it breaks down the details on how all this is going to go down, how teams have handled this kind of stuff, how they've been prepared, how they returned to training, and all the different things that went through. They had to get permission from their local state. They had to adhere to an 11-point list of guidelines handed down from the league. They had to respect social distancing, keep any non-essential time at the training ground to a minimum. Some players trained in masks. Munich, Bayern was one that went to small groups of 3 or 4 players first. Non-contact. Goalkeepers trained separately. They did have shooting practice, so goalkeepers did get involved there, but that was their only interaction with the field players. Sessions finished with sprints, no shower at the training ground. Players picked up food packages. They took it home because they couldn't have meals in the locker room. So you're having to figure out stuff like that. I mean, these are big logistical issues that you're sorting out. RB Leipzig, each player has an individual room at their facility. So they were able to sort that out. Lunch is placed outside the player's room. Like it's placed outside the door. Leverkusen players were grouped together based on their role in the team. Those who play down the right wing trained in the same group, for example. Everybody's kind of used the dummies or stand-ins or cardboard cutouts or whatever to simulate opponents in training sessions. We saw that with Atlanta United's individual stuff. You've got the pylons, you've got sticks, all kinds of different things to simulate that. Hoffenheim has done a lot with the mental side. They've done a lot of focus on mental attentiveness, short videos, tactical lessons, using tablets. They installed a 360-degree screen at their training ground for even more complex brain games. So everybody's kind of finding a different way to get through this. Mainz is actually really interesting. Their sporting director is taking advantage of this to go back to the roots of the game. And they kind of went with like a street soccer mentality of 1v1 situations and creating those kinds of things. And they've actually been training at their old stadium, which they moved into a new stadium in 2011, but the old stadium has still been there. It's still been used, not by them for games, but they're training there to get used to the behind closed doors atmosphere. So everybody's figuring out different elements to it. We all know why the Bundesliga and every other league wants to come back. The financial situations are very key here. Even with coming back, the Bundesliga is set to miss out on 70 million euro in revenue with empty stadiums. But if they had not returned, Christian Seifert, the CEO of the Bundesliga, said 18 of the 36 would have faced severe financial difficulties. Half of the teams in the top 2. Mm-hmm. If the leagues were canceled, you're talking about losing $800 million. Borussia Dortmund's CEO said if the season was canceled, the Bundesliga would not exist in its current form. Period.
Completely understand that.
The Bundesliga's executive committee said last month, we do not want an economic crisis to lead to structural damage that could be irreparable and radically change the face of German professional football. So all of that led to a task force sports medicine / special game operations group on March 31st being created. 51-page blueprint for how the closed-door matches would take place. That was developed in a couple of weeks. That's when it started going through all of the different approval processes that we've talked about. So in late April, they got the final installment of TV rights revenue from all but one of their broadcasters. That was paid out on May 2nd. That gave the clubs a little bit of room on the financial side. Sources told ESPN that some teams across the 2 leagues had already guaranteed that unpaid revenue to various creditors. Okay, so the other 2 installments that are left on that are reliant on matches being completed because you still have a little bit of money out there to get sorted out. Players and staff are tested twice a week. Match day weeks, players are tested the day prior to a match and on another occasion during the week. See, this level of detail is really important because these are the things that you're probably going to see here in MLS and in other leagues. It's what the Premier League should be focusing on as well. I'm sure they are. So you're tested the day before a match. You're tested again during the week. 2 tests, nose and throat, to help prevent false results. And they arrive in the lab as one PCR, the polymerase chain reaction test. Results are then given to the team's head doctor at 10 a.m. on the morning of the matches. Teams are also being given antibody tests. Leverkusen players receive a message every morning on their phone asking 5 questions about how they are feeling. Depending on their answers, then they are granted permission to go to training. On arrival, temperatures checked. 1,724 tests in late April, early May across the 2 divisions. 10 positive results, 3 coming from Cologne. The club said all 3 were symptom-free. They were going to continue training, but those 3 were going to be held out. Cologne's Birger Verstraete on Belgian TV questioned the club's policy. Now, he said, "We trained in 2 groups, and you know that the boys were extremely close to me. The test was done on Thursday around 4 p.m., and before that, we had been together constantly from 9 to 3 p.m. We did fitness work together, trained together. Thursday's test didn't show that I am positive, and that is why there will be another test tomorrow." His girlfriend has a previous heart condition. That's why he is definitely concerned here. He said the call not to put the team in quarantine is a little bit bizarre. My head is not on soccer. Now, he apologized for the remarks later, but that's what kind of got, questions about this whole process, and are they going to actually get back on the field? 1 second division team put their entire squad and staff in home isolation after they had 1 positive test in their functional team. I would assume like the support staff.
Yeah.
Anyone in a player's household for the rest of the season is subject to voluntary testing. Players are not allowed to have physical contact with neighbors or public, must respect the 6-foot social distancing rule, not allowed visitors at home, and prohibited from using public transport. You've got some players that travel by public transport, and they are telling players not to, but I guess some players probably still are. Those rules apply to everyone who lives in the player's household as well. They also need to keep a note of all the people they are in contact with, and if someone breaks the social distancing rules, then players are recommended to go back into quarantine until they have been tested. The testing, I think that's the biggest maybe development in all of this, is that when all of this started, it was 14 days quarantine, no questions asked, whatever, because you weren't testing everybody on a regular. Now, if you are doing the follow-up testing when there is a positive, you're able to manage it differently. It's a different conversation than it was. There was this whole thing about were they going to go into a 14-day quarantine period before returning to action or go into a 1 week. They went into a 7-day training camp and isolation on May 8th, regularly tested as they restart full contact training before matches resume on the 16th. So you've got teams staying, like Borussia Mönchengladbach has a hotel next to their training ground. Bayern training away from their headquarters because they're able to go somewhere and basically do a training camp. RB Leipzig staying at their training ground. Again, players have rooms. They have like apartments at their training ground. It sounds like it's wild. Yep. Hertha Berlin using their normal team hotel in the city center in Berlin. So everybody's figuring out how they'll handle it. Now, the official protocol from the Bundesliga states this. In the case of positive test results, the decision about the measures to be taken lies with the local health authorities. That's why you have Dynamo Dresden, who is being mandated into a 14-day quarantine period. It's the local health authorities. Focus is on minimizing the spread of the virus. Clubs will look to their local authorities for guidance should players or staff become exposed to someone who is positive for the coronavirus. If they have been in direct contact with an infected individual for more than 15 minutes, they are Category 1, high risk of infection. Category 2, low risk, have had no direct or indirect contact for more than 15 minutes with an infected individual. That's another really important distinction that I have never heard broken down that way.
I haven't either.
Thank you, Bundesliga, for informing us of these things. This is very important. In the case of a positive test, team doctor informs the local health authority and the league and isolates the player. If a player is showing symptoms, they are tested at home or in a drive-through testing station. If the player is starting to show symptoms prior to testing, protocols state that they must inform the team doctor and self-isolate. If they are symptom-free but still test positive, they will liaise with the team doctor to whether they can continue exercising on their own. They are telling people who are showing symptoms and testing positive to avoid physical activity. Clubs are not officially issuing communications about positive tests. The league is going to handle that. They've been advised to operate with a squad big enough, including academy players, to cover absences due to quarantines, due to isolation situations. Referees, 100 referees and assistant referees are tested this week, prior to the return of the league. If an official tests positive, a new referee is appointed. If that's not possible, the fourth official who's assigned to the match will step in. All referees are tested the day prior to matches, asked to refrain from posting on their social media accounts, probably to, in case there is a positive, so you don't get into all kinds of confusion there. All kinds of stuff on what the match day looks like in the stadium, technicians, 15 VAR technicians, 3 photographers, 4 ball boys, all that level of detail which you would expect in Germany. But I think the stuff on the player side, it's really important to bring it to the table because I've never heard it in that much detail. And this is a great document over at ESPN. It was from May 8th, and it wasn't widely talked about because, look, it's a lot more fun to talk about the SPFL fighting itself, or the Premier League Brighton saying we're not going to play, or what if they get demanded to play? No, we're not going to play. That stuff's going to get the headlines. We get it. This came out on, what would it have been, Friday? Yeah, it would have been Friday after the show.
Yes.
And I had not seen it make the rounds at all. That's a little disturbing because that's the detail that I think we all need to know when we're having these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
What are the leagues going to do? What are the clubs going to do in this process? That feels like a pretty well thought out return to action. It's not foolproof. It's not perfect. There's no way to guarantee that you're asking your players who, I've heard a lot of pushback on this, like, well, players don't want to be, isolated from their families. Players don't want to be this. But we see people who work in a grocery store here isolating themselves from their family because they want to work. I think when you're asking a player and their household to do these things, it's not too much to ask. It goes back to that responsibility. You have a bit of responsibility if you're going to get back on the field. You're going to get to play these games. You're going to get paid. Yeah, there are things you're going to be asked to do, and you're going to have to go forward with them if you want to be part of this. I don't think that's wrong. I don't really have a problem with the way they're handling it. So this much detail, thank you, Tom Hamilton, Stefan Ersfeld, for putting this together and getting all of this. And you're going to have a lot of eyeballs on how it goes down in Germany because if they get it right, you're going to see this replicated. If there are issues, they're going to come out quickly. If things fall apart, it's going to be obvious. So this is a huge step, and it's a risky one. It's a bold one on the Bundesliga side. I mean, people are going to point a lot of fingers if you have a whole bunch of positive tests, but there's also that responsibility on the clubs and the players. And now, okay, your baseline coming in was 11 positive out of 1,700 plus. You shouldn't, if everything is being done correctly, you shouldn't have more outside of those 11 potentially spreading it in their group. I mean, is that a wrong statement to make? If you have the protocols, you are doing all of the social distancing, you are doing all of the things you are being asked to do, you are taking care of that in your household as well, then you should not be getting exposed and you should be able to go forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that's a fair assessment.
Establish that.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment.
When you see a jump in numbers, if it happens, you have to figure out why. I mean, I believe there was a report out of South Korea this morning that there's a risk of a super spreader, is what I heard they were called, because he was at a nightclub in Seoul.
Yeah. Right.
And now they're going to have to test everybody. Is every person who was in that club going to test positive? Probably not. That's a little excessive. I don't think he was that much of a super spreader unless he's a really friendly guy in a dance club.
A really good mingler.
Yeah. But it's a risk. And now that's been opened up. Now then you have to track where those people went after potentially being exposed and all that. It's been so isolated in South Korea, you can actually track that. You can actually get to that level of contact tracing. In Germany, they are basically setting up that baseline. They can't do all of the lockdown things that a South Korea did, for example. They're not asking their players to go into complete, bubbles to stay away from everybody, but they do have responsibility on them. If they follow that and everything is done properly, you should not have a jump in numbers. And that's what that's their hypothesis here, and we'll find out.
You mentioned Bundesliga. Cologne have reportedly been given the all clear after another round of testing confirmed that the coronavirus is no longer present at the club. Remember earlier this month you had the 3 staff members who
they test negative.
They had contracted COVID-19 and were put in 14-day quarantine.
Okay, so they're separate. Okay.
Yeah, they were separate. Following a period in isolation, the trio had been tested again, recovered from the virus, according to Kicker. So
that's what I was asking. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So the positives are now negative. None of them were showing symptoms, and now you have no positives. Correct?
Yeah. So, reports suggested the 2 players and a physio contracted COVID-19 before being tested on their return to training. Quarantine ended Thursday, allowing him to make a full recovery and return to the team ahead of the restart this weekend.
All right, so progress there. Couple other nuggets before we wrap. Brazil is starting to get back on the field. Some clubs have started training. Atlético Mineiro announced that they will have drive-through tests for their players this morning. That will be ahead of a full return to training. So players who test positive will obviously not be part of the resumption of training. Their initial training sessions are going to be real similar to what MLS is doing now. Individual section of the field, not interactive, not contact, those kinds of things. So Brazil, that's the first I had heard about kind of where things stand there. They are starting to edge back to getting back on the field. Haven't seen any updates out of Argentina. Waiting on some of the other countries. I think Liga MX, the Mexican government, is set to make some announcements later this week about reopening things and what it looks like. So stay tuned there. Don't know. Everybody's figuring it out as they go.
Is Kyle Walker still our tweet of the day?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty hard one to beat.
He, after the show on Friday, a statement was posted to his Twitter account where he criticized pretty much everybody.
Oh, he's criticizing people now?
Yeah, he criticized the media for invading his privacy. In relation to the events, I traveled to Sheffield to give my sister a birthday card and present, but also to speak to one of the few people I believe I can trust in my life. She hugged me to remind me that she cares and that I'm loved. What am I meant to do? Push her away? I then traveled to my parents' house to pick up some home cooking. It's been an extremely tough couple of months for them.
Yeah, you did. That's not how it was portrayed. Now, maybe it was blown out of proportion about the party, but the time frame that he was at his sister's does not sound like what he's describing. Wasn't it like 3 hours?
4.
That sounds like a party, not what he's describing. The reason why people are talking about it, Kyle, is because of what happened earlier in your lockdown time, where you had another party, and that was pretty widely spread. So, yes, you have kind of lost the benefit of the doubt, Kyle. You're going to have to earn that back. You're not going to earn it back with statements complaining about people invading your privacy. You had a lockdown party with who was invited to the party?
A buddy, and I'm trying to see how it was phrased in the. One has it as a call girl. Another article has them as working girls. A buddy and two call girls, or a buddy and two working girls.
Okay. Either way, whatever profession you want to put there, you are inviting random people to your lockdown party that you're not supposed to have, regardless of their profession or description of their profession. Mm-hmm. They weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to do that. And that, bad look. Then you went and did something else that, again, bad look.
3 times in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
He has emailed individual fans back who have complained to the club about his behavior. He even sent one Supreme Match shirt and has put out an apology on behalf and support of the NHS, the National Health Service, as well. So he has not been punished by the club. A fine is expected once City have finished investigating the first incident and not the most recent incidents.
Kyle is still the twit of the day. He still has the twit belt for now.
Yes.
Tomorrow, somebody in Scotland might claim it, because I got a feeling there's going to be fireworks. Yeah. Bad. Just bad.
Oh, Liverpool, before we go.
Yes.
Liverpool has assured everyone publicly that they won't put out a C team for the remainder of their fixtures once they clinch the Premier League.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've said, no, we'll put out the best team possible.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Best team possible. You might have some mysterious hamstring pulls that happen, and that's fine.
In multiple numbers.
Yeah, I'm not mocking Liverpool. They should play a 15-year-old if they want to.
You ought to play whoever the hell you want.
Yep.
It's a you problem for everyone else in the Premier League for not beating them in the first place.
See, I can see Jurgen Klopp coming out, the Monday after they clinch, saying again, we'll play the best team possible for the upcoming match.
You're right, Bandit.
I could see Klopp doing that, and he
with
should.
with a big cigar and a big smile on his face.
Sure, he should.
As he should.
You win, you do what you want. Ridiculous.
Amen.
Couple other bits of news before we wrap. Jari Litmanen, who is an Ajax legend, Finland legend, one of the best players of the last probably 40, 50 years, 49 years old. He has been fighting against coronavirus for 4 weeks.
Wow.
Said, I have never felt so bad physically. Oh, man. So this is the difference, and I think this is something that gets lost in this sometimes. Look, I get it. I understand why it gets lost, but those positive tests for Cologne, for example, no symptoms, nobody was feeling bad. Nobody was feeling like Jari Litmanen, and now they've passed, and now they're negative, and now you're moving forward. Just because there's a positive test doesn't mean you end up in this situation, but you can end up in this situation. This is why you have to take care of everything very, very carefully. There's just a bit of an idea that like every positive test is this horribly scaring thing, but as a lot has come up with it, you have a lot of people who test positive but are asymptomatic, and they're not feeling anything at all. So it's not the like freak out because there's a positive test because that player is going to be sick. It's a positive test, so you have to stop the spread. I think at times we don't differentiate between the two, and that's the important thing. It's positive test, stop the spread, make sure the player is healthy and okay, and keep monitoring, and that's how you handle it. You don't handle it by freaking out about this. Jari Litmanen, retired player, 49 years old, is going through it with this, as we've seen lots of different public figures have to go through it with this. And it's a scary thing. We need to stop the spread so we don't have this happening, but you can't react every time somebody tests positive to thinking this is what they're facing. It's not. It's a complicated situation. I mean, we're all learning more about it every day, but Jari Litmanen is going through it, hopefully coming at least on the other side of it here soon. If he's giving interviews, that's a good sign, and that's a positive development. So we hope Jari Litmanen is starting to feel back. One of the absolute best players Ajax ever had, and should have played at a World Cup. I mean, he's in that Ryan Giggs category of playing for a country that is not a powerhouse and didn't get that World Cup opportunity, but Litmanen was a player that is cherished at Ajax for his time there. I think Louis van Gaal loved him. He was one of his all-time favorites there. So Litmanen, will keep an eye on that. And then sad news out of Argentina, a player that nobody really outside of the country has heard much of. The reason I knew the name when this popped up was because of the book Angels with Dirty Faces, which is just an exhaustive history of soccer in Argentina. A player from Rosario who never stuck in the top divisions, and a lot of conversation about why. Very odd individual, very talented individual. Tomas Felipe Karlovic, called him El Trinche. He was heralded as the best player in Rosario, but he didn't play for Newell's. He didn't play for Rosario Central. He played for a smaller team. He's in his mid-70s. He passed away Friday, not from coronavirus. He was actually attacked on the street. Bike was stolen, and I believe in the attack he had a head injury that he did not recover from. But he was a player that Diego Maradona met him recently, I want to say either late last year or early this year, and there was video of it, of Trinche and Diego discussing and talking, and Diego autographed a Gimnasia jersey and gave it to him, and Diego, I think in the autograph, said that you were better than me. And Trinche said something about, you gave me all the joy. Watching you play was, enough. And a lot of things are being written and said about him. He's one of those. I'm trying to think of a comparison here, like maybe, and it's not a direct one. Somebody like Connie Hawkins in basketball. Yeah. Who was known as a playground player, played in the ABA, came into the NBA at the end of his career, but you didn't see the best of him.
Satchel Paige?
Yeah, but you still saw him. This is a player you didn't see. The only time that really he got national attention was ahead of the 78 World Cup. The Argentine national team went out and did some friendly games out in the, away from Buenos Aires, and they played a Rosario 11, and it was 5 players from Newell's, 5 players from Rosario, and they had to leave a spot for Trinche, for Karlovic, and he was the star of the show. All the dribbling you can imagine, all the tricks. I mean, just one of those kinds of players, a playground kind of player, but he didn't have the mentality to make it at a top club. He didn't have that killer instinct. He wanted to play and enjoy it and be able to do what he wanted to do. And he was, honored and celebrated in Rosario for that. He was recognized as the best player ever from Rosario. But he wasn't a guy that made it big. And that's what's been kind of fascinating looking at this from the outside. I mean, I knew the name and I knew the stories, but to see the national attention to this for a player who I want to say he might have played for Rosario Central in a game or a friendly tournament of some sort, but he never played for the Argentine national team. He never played in any extended run in the Primera División. But I mean, he's being honored like a national hero, and that gives you a bit of I think the respect for him, but also the respect for that kind of player in Argentina. That's why, you look at Pity Martinez here, and people freaked out about, gave the ball away here, or he doesn't hustle defensively. In Argentina, he's beloved because he's that kind of player. He's that skillful player. He's going to pull the gambetta, the dribbling moves that lose you. He's going to nutmeg 5 players. He's going to do those things. That kind of player celebrated. This guy was that kind of player, Karlovic in Argentina, to a point that he didn't make it at any kind of a big level, but he's still seen as a icon in the game. And when I saw that, I knew the story and I wanted to see what the reaction would be. And I mean, he's being treated like a national hero, and that's kind of cool. I hope that he felt that during his life, because Diego wasn't the only one who said stuff like that. I mean, a lot of people talked about him as the best player they ever saw.
And, I think that when you're able to tell these kinds of stories and introduce these kinds of folks to another audience, because, I mean, I'm sure that as you presented this, a lot of folks were literally going, who? But the fact that you're able to introduce these kind of players and these kinds of underappreciated stars to the show, I think it's really cool when you can do this kind of stuff. Regrettably that it's taken, a passing for it to happen, but I think that it's part of the history that needs to be remembered.
Yeah, I think it's just it shows a little bit of the fabric of the game in other countries, and something that I think we'll get to here, and you'll have, folk heroes in the game. I don't know if we really have that in soccer in the United States yet.
Yeah.
There are players who are not appreciated in the way that they should. There's players who, career kind of took place at the wrong time, honestly, to get that appreciation. But we don't have these kinds of tales just yet. I think we will. It's an important part of the fabric of the game, and it's an important part of the storytelling around the game. And
no doubt.
Rosario came out. I think they held a service for him to honor his memory. Might have been at Central. People came out even in this time of coronavirus and fear. I mean, it looked like it was pretty well spread out as best as you could be, but it was a big public showing for his memory. So that was a sad thing to see Friday after the show was ending that it came to the fore. But these are the things that are going on right now, and it's all over the world. It's aspects of the game that are at all different points of it right now, and we're trying to keep you updated as best we can. You have a couple more teams in MLS who are hitting the training pitch today. I think you'll be around half of the league doing individual training by the middle of this week, which is a step in the right direction. It's a step, though. One step. A small step. I believe the training moratorium for small groups ends this weekend for MLS, so you could see that next step coming if everything is handled along the way. And I hope that MLS comes out publicly with what those protocols look like we talked about with the Bundesliga. I'd love to hear what all those individual steps are as we get there.
Yep. Anything else on the table before we go?
Nope, that'll do it. We're back in the morning on SDH app, on soccerdownhere.net, on Twitch. You can watch along with us. Thanks to everybody who's been hanging out with us on Twitch since we started doing this here as well. You can also always listen on demand on the soccerdownhere.net website, on the Spreaker website, and through your favorite podcatcher. So We will keep you posted on what happens out of England today, because there should be more coming out the rest of the day. We'll talk about what's going to happen in Scotland tomorrow with their vote at their EGM, their Extraordinary General Meeting, about an independent inquiry into the league. Further steps on the Bundesliga, as they're just a few days away from returning to the pitch for actual matches that count. So lots of things this week. We'll be all over it as best we can. Thanks for being part of it. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.